The study said, not surprisingly, that this would be a very expensive undertaking for the state of Montana to comply with the Clean Power Plan in a way that, again, met the two requirements, namely, it met the power needs of Montana customers and it also was a sufficient reduction to comply with the plan. The reason for that, in addition to what I've talked about, are some of the expenses involved in simply closing Colstrip. So in terms of remediating the site, in terms of compensating the owners, especially the in-state regulated utilities owners of Colstrip for their stranded cost, it would be a significant amount of money even before you talked about the kind of money that would be needed to develop the infrastructure to render the Montana electric grid whole again. It's also a big deal because the loss of Colstrip would end Montana's status as an energy exporter. Currently, Montana has a comparative advantage in the production of electricity from coal. Colstrip is a mine mouth plant. It receives its coal on a conveyor belt from the adjacent mine and ships that product by wire to other states. So that is the kind of business that brings money into the state of Montana and therefore helps to grow the economy by more than just the spending power of Montanans by ourselves could possibly support. So one reason why the impacts are large as well is that with the loss of that status, Montana reverts to becoming a state which must occasionally import power from other states. That's quite a change from the status that we've enjoyed ever since the mid-'80s. So talking a little bit about some of the results of the study, it showed that if you took a look at the compliance with the Clean Power Plan along the lines that I've described, you're talking about the loss of 7,100 jobs, permanent year-round jobs. You're looking at the loss of about $500 million per year of income to households throughout the state of Montana. You're looking at significant declines in state tax revenues. These occur both through the direct impact of the taxes paid by the businesses involved with the mining of coal and production of electricity, but also the knock-on effects as households lose their sources of income, vendors lose their business, then that translates into lower incomes and less income tax collections for the state of Montana. Those losses are almost $146 million per year. So you're talking about losses to businesses across Montana who would expect to realize about $1.5 billion less in sales for all the products and services that they sell that are ultimately going to be affected by compliance with the Clean Power Plan. And you're talking about potentially the loss of about 5,200 people. These are all statewide numbers. Of course, those impacts get much more severe the closer you get to Colstrip itself, but it's important to note that a lot of these impacts propagate to different parts of the state. For example, northwest Montana, which is where I'm sitting right now, which appears to have very little connection with coal-fired generation in Colstrip, nonetheless would lose almost 1,000 jobs at its peak because of the compliance with the Clean Power Plan. Why is that? Part of it is through tax revenues. State tax revenues are impacted, and particularly in a community like Missoula, which is home to a very important state-supported educational institution, that's an important factor. But there's also the effect on transportation grid, on the property taxes, and also the big change is what's happening with electric prices. Because electricity prices go up, Montana loses its traditional advantage in terms of having access to low-cost generation of electricity, in terms of being something that gives us a competitive edge for some kinds of businesses. So that's a quick look at some of the changes that could happen. They are still relevant to be aware of. With the EPA Clean Power Plan in the courts, things can change by the stroke of a pen. The compliance period is very short. The consequences for Montana are very important. And that's why I thought that even though the study is coming up on being almost a year old, it's appropriate that we review and take a look at the results of that study so that we can learn the lessons of how important Colstrip and how important coal-fired generation is to our economy, and how needlessly expensive and onerous is the attempt to address climate change, global warming, CO2 emissions through this rather crude and painful policy. I'm Patrick Barkey, Director of the Bureau of Business Economic Research. Thank you very much.